Hello, welcome. Uh, Very happy to see you all here. Um, this is the second day and of the ADB's fifth annual meeting of the Board of Governors with the theme Positioning Climate Resilient Green Economy in a Post-COVID World. I'm very happy to be here today and sharing this space with all of you, as well as many of our distinguished speakers for the panel that we have today. This event on building sustainable blue economies for food security and livelihoods is jointly organized by WWF International and Worldfish and is part of the Civil Society program of events this week. I am Lan Mercado, the Regional Director for Asia Pacific at WWF International, and I am very pleased to be your moderator for this panel. Let me begin by sharing a few words about our topic for today. Healthy coastal and aquatic ecosystems are, of course, crucial for food security, nutrition, and livelihoods of millions of people in Asia and the Pacific. Healthy coastal and aquatic ecosystems also provide nature-based solutions in the form of a range of natural services and provide benefits to society and the environment. As we look to grow climate-resilient green economies in a post-COVID-19 world, there is growing recognition that we also need to build sustainable blue economy pathways and recognize the important contribution of blue and aquatic food ecosystems. In 2019, ADB launched its Healthy Oceans Action Plan for Sustainable Blue Economies in Asia and the Pacific. And in the subsequent years, we have seen a rising tide of recognition of the importance of oceans in tackling climate change and in nourishing nations, including at the Glasgow Climate COP, the UN Food Systems Summit, and the recent Lisbon UN Oceans Conference. And yet, alongside this recognition, we have also learned that investment in SDG 14 being life underwater, lags well behind investments in other SDGs, and there is an urgent need to develop and scale investments in sustainable blue economy solutions. Today's event, led by WWF and Worldfish, will draw upon the experience of practitioners working across the region. It will take the format of two panels. The first panel focuses on how aquatic foods, healthy diets, and nature-based solutions promote a sustainable blue economy and resilient communities. The second panel looks at examples of successful collaborations focused on scaling and impact. So it's a complement of solutions on one hand and partnerships on the other. After each panel, there will be opportunities for you to ask questions of the panelists. We will be using Pigeonhole to do this, so please think of questions or comments and put them in the Pigeonhole as you listen to the talks. At the end of the event, we, the organizers, and the Asian Development Bank, as well as the panelists, hope that you would have a greater appreciation of the opportunity of blue and aquatic foods for meeting climate, health, nutrition, and livelihoods objectives, especially for coastal communities, and in particular for women and infants. We also hope that this panel would help to increase your awareness of the value of nature-based solutions in coastal zones, especially mangroves, for meeting climate adaptation and mitigation goals. And finally, we hope that we would have contributed to an increased knowledge of pathways to support scaling, including partnerships between civil society organizations and governments, and improve the collaboration among civil society organizations for scaling up to deliver solutions. Before we move to our first panel, I want to acknowledge the devastating impact of the unprecedented flood event in Pakistan. And just a few days ago, also the disastrous impact of Super Typhoon Noru in the Philippines. And hopefully, Noru will weaken as it tracks through the rest of Southeast Asia. As with every disaster such as this, the impacts will be felt for generations, and our thoughts are with those individuals and communities that are affected. I am sure many of us empathize with the plight of people in the Philippines and Pakistan, and for that matter, any country that's being affected by the intensified effects of climate induced disasters. But I want to specifically highlight Pakistan because the Pakistani government and Sindh province have been real leaders in protecting, managing, and restoring mangroves to deliver nature based solutions, including around the Indus River Delta. The results have been quite impressive and far reaching. And we have a short video that captures and illustrates the impact of Pakistan, the impacts for Pakistan's largest city. Let's roll video, please.
In Pakistan's largest city, Karachi, many people cut down mangrove trees to burn for fuel, harming the environment and creating CO2 emissions. Wood burning hurts people too, causing breathing, skin and eye problems. That's why partners came together to help communities stop burning wood at home. Clean, renewable energy systems were installed in over 2,500 households. Many residents said their health improved. Others, both men and women, found work linked to the energy systems. And 158 women said having easier energy systems meant more time to earn money. Mangrove wood usage plunged from 15 kilograms per day per home to under 2 kilograms. And locals planted 90,000 mangroves and 60,000 other trees for climate resilience and biodiversity. Renewable energy and renewed forests. Karachi shows that climate solutions also improve people's health and lifestyle.
Thank you. Such an inspiring video that sets us up very well for our first panel. Our first panel focuses on blue economy opportunities for healthy diets and coastal resilience. Our panelists are a colleague of mine, Rab Nawaz, the Senior Director for Programs of WWF Pakistan. And we also have Vaishnava Charan Ratha, the Project Manager of Worldfish, and Romana Akhter, Senior Nutrition Advisor for Sukana Save the Children in Bangladesh. We will hear from each of our three speakers, and then we will have a panel discussion based on questions from you, our audience. We will be using Pigeonhole to collect questions, and you can either log into Pigeonhole using the code that is hopefully displaying on the screen on your devices, or you can enter using the box at the bottom corner of your screen. You can see this information now on the screen. Please do take a moment now to log into Pigeonhole so that you can be an active participant in this discussion, and you can share with us your questions and comments. Let's start with our first panel. Our first speaker is Rab Nawaz, Senior Director for Programs, WWF Pakistan. Rab will speak to us on planting mangroves to fight poverty and climate change and share lessons and opportunities drawn from what we have seen on the ground from the Indus Delta in Sindh. Rab, great to see you. Welcome, and over to you.
Thank you, Lan. If someone can go to the presentation. So this is a very brief pictorial presentation of a village in the Indus Delta. I'm taking you away from Karachi and taking you east towards the delta, which used to be fed by the mighty Indus. But since the barrages and dams have gone up, it's not so mighty anymore. So the fresh flow down to the delta has been restricted severely, and both the ecosystem and the people have to change. So you can see here that most communities are living literally inches above the water. So any change in water levels and storms, they are impacted immediately. They don't have half an hour, an hour and a half to evacuate. They are usually inundated immediately. Next, please. So I'll take you back to the problem. You can see here, this is a boat full of what we call trash fish. Trash fish usually goes to chicken feed and kind of is used for the base of many materials. But this is not trash fish. This is actually all the juveniles that start their life in the delta, and they're caught in a net, which is really a mosquito net. It's that small. As the communities caught more and more fish to meet their demands, the fish got less. They started to cut mangroves as a source of income, and this vicious cycle started. There's less mangroves means less fish means cutting more mangroves, and ultimately they ended up in debt. They took money from the money lenders, which is a never-ending, very crippling debt. So this is what we faced when we entered the delta. Nearly 2 decades ago, is this vicious cycle of poverty and degradation of the environment. Next, please. So we started with dialogue, of course, with the community, getting them on board, and our aim is always to create diversification of livelihoods and to restore them. We had a long dialogue with the community. It ended up being decided by a game of cricket, as all things are in Pakistan. Unfortunately, fortunately, the communities won, as usual. But it just shows the importance of being in the field with the community, understanding their problems, and coming up with a solution which is acceptable both technically, socially, and ecologically. Next, please. And we linked to the mangroves. There's a very close link between the increase of mangrove cover and the increase of fish. So working with communities, we didn't plant a single mangrove, all done through communities, making them realize that this is the need of the day. And with the support of Forest Department and other agencies, we actually have planted more than 15,000 hectares of mangroves. In fact, the cover, which was about 86,000 hectares, is now increased to about more than 120. So bending the curve is possible. And there is a clear demonstration. There's a lot of benefits to planting mangroves, not only the livelihoods, but the storm protection, and so many other kind of benefits which the community realized. Once that had done, once communities realized how important these ecosystems and forest types were, they've planted themselves. And we've not only seen very good forest cover come back, but also seen species which should have been extinct in the delta come back as well. Next, please. And then we focused on their fishing practices, reducing the post-harvest loss, and also diversifying the catch. So here you see ice boxes being dropped off at the community villages. Just small, very effective interventions that allow community to make more income from a reduced catch. Next, please. And this is what we wanted to see. We wanted to see bigger fish. We want to see diversification of livelihoods. So crab fattening was one intervention we introduced and been a huge success. So all in all, next please, all in all a very happy and resilient community. If there's a take home from this, it's partnerships. We cannot do this alone. We need partnerships. We need academia. We need development organizations, we need the government, and of course we need the community. So I think that's my last slide, and I think I'm in time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rob. I was actually very inspired by what you shared with us and tells me a lot about inclusive conservation. Um, and now we'll hear from our second speaker, Vaishnava Charan Ratha, the project manager for Worldfish. Vaishnava will speak to us on harnessing the power of small fish to nourish women and children, and these are experiences from India. Vaishnava, over to you.
This is the harnessing the power of small fish to nourish women and children. This is a pilot study. Next, please. Next, please. Odisha is a state of eastern coast of India with population of 45 million, where 31% of children below 5 are stunted and 29.7% of children are undernourished. It is as per NFHS data. Next, please. Actually, when we are talking about the small fish and small fish nutrition, because small fish, you may get a lot of bioavailability of iron, calcium, iodine, vitamins, zinc, minerals, and fatty acids. Odisha is a state where 95% people are consuming fish. They love to eat fish, and huge water body is available in Odisha because there is a coastline, there is a reservoir, there is a rivers, bills, pond. So Odisha is the fourth largest fish producing state in India. Next, please. Actually, before our piloting, we started another two piloting. It is in a tribal residential school that is Keys. 30,000 tribal children are reading there, staying there. So we tried for 6 months. Then another 24 schools also we tried. Then we share our scientific evidence research to the government people and other agencies. We participate in national and state workshop to tell about us. Doing the cross-country exposure like Cambodia to see how the community is accepting small fish nutrition. Then only government of Odisha accepted our proposal to introduce small fish in ICDS as a pilot. So we prepare a standard operating procedure, a lot of SBCC material also prepare. Next, please. As per our objective of the pilot to improve the dietary diversity and micronutrient intake of women and children involved in the supplementary nutrition program, test the acceptability of the dry fish product, like the test, easy of use with the tribal community, beneficiaries and Anganwadi workers. Next, please. Started in the tribal area, that is Maurubhans. Our beneficiaries 3 to 6 year children, lactating mother, pregnant mother and adolescent girl. We are providing 10 grams of fish powder to children and 40 grams of certified dry fish to women as a THR, take home ration. Next, please. Next, please. You may see the beautiful photographs where children are enjoying small fish powder and that is take home ration. Pregnant and lactating mother, they are collecting the hygienic dry fish. Pregnant woman is taking diet with fish. Next, please. So findings of our studies, the inclusion of hygienic fish powder of children is well accepted by the children as well as mother and caretaker of the children. Both Anganwadi center workers and mothers find it easy to store and incorporate in the powder in their regular meals. Adolescent girl, pregnant woman and lactating mother like the hygienic dry fish. Promotion of hygienic dry fish production at household level also. People know about the hygienic dry fish. It is completely convergence approach because both wild fish, Women and Child Development, CIFT, Fishery Department, ICR, CIFT, MSSRF, Swaminathan Foundation, all collaborative approach. We did all the things for success. Now also, Government of Tamil Nadu also considering how the small fish will be part of ICDS in that state. Next, please. So then also government of Odisha also considering scale of the program in phase-wise manner till the dry fish supply in the state is sufficient. Other states like Assam and Tamil Nadu also considering to introduce a small fish in that program. Recently, we have started 3 months pilot project in Assam where 293 Anganwadi centers are involved. It is started in the Poshan month. Now also we are considering how the small fish powder will be part of some children, severe acute malnutrition children in the state like Odisha, Assam and all coastal district and coastal states where the malnutrition issues are more. So from last 3 years we are working on fish nutrition, and government is step by step government is accepting our approach. So we think it's a good approach that under diversified food, how the small fish nutrition will be a part of the program, both in community level and also in government level. So this is a good pilot we have done in Odisha. Now also you have started in Assam. So you are comparing like in Odisha there is huge amount of small fish available, marine small fish. You are trying here, it is accepted. Now in Assam also you are trying the fresh water locally available small fishes. So you are comparing, you are observing what is the acceptability. It is very good. It is going on good. So that you get a good result in Assam, and also you may do the scale up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vaishnava. When you were talking about addressing the reducing micronutrient deficiency and talking about the role of women, particularly mothers, I'm really reminded of the care economy that we also need to pay attention to, in addition to the productive or the income side of economies. With that, I'd like to turn over to our third speaker for our first panel. This is Romana Akhter, Senior Nutrition Advisor of Sukana Save the... I hope I'm pronouncing that right. The Sukana Save the Children in Bangladesh. Romana will speak to us about multi-sectoral programs for improving food security and nutrition amongst the poor and very poor households in Bangladesh. Romana, hello, and over to you.
Hi. Thank you so much, Len. I'm going to briefly talk about the program Suchona, ending the cycle of undernutrition. In Bangladesh particularly, the project was implemented in 2 districts of northeastern Bangladesh. Next slide, please. As said, Suchona is a multi-sectoral program of nutrition-sensitive and specific interventions that aims to reduce stunting in children below 2 years in 2 districts. And this is a randomized controlled trial of 4, and each cohort stays for 3 years. More than 3,500,000 households are engaged with Suchona. Next, please. Suchona closely works with 8 ministries and their relevant departments, such as Ministry of Food, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Ministry of Fisheries and Livestock, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, Cooperatives, Ministry of Women and Child Affairs, Ministry of Social Welfare, and Ministry of Disaster Management Relief. Here you can see some of the photos of the meeting with the different ministry level with government representatives. Next, please. Here we are seeing some of the nutrition sensitive interventions. Photo nutrition sensitive intervention in Suchona includes homestead food production, which meaning that homestead aquaculture, horticulture, small livestock and poultry production through the use of improved production technology and capacity strengthening of smallholder farmers. Climate resilient agriculture production through improved technology development based on topography that the smallholder farmers can contribute, producing food during challenged situation. Income generating activities by the poor households through giving them training and water and sanitation, women empowerment to increase women's mobility and decision making power, especially on the productive resources. Social protection schemes to support vulnerable groups such as pregnant and lactating women, physically and mentally disabled people, destitute women and old allowance. Since the nutrition sensitive activities include agriculture, aquaculture, and livestock fisheries. So to sell the produces in the market, Sujana works with the market linkages that the produces can be sold by the small holder farmer in a fair price, and early warning system for disaster risk reductions because the working area of Sujana is kind of in disaster prone areas. Next please. In Sujana, the nutrition-specific interventions include actually in two ways. One is demand creation at the community, and also giving the supply through ensuring the system strengthening. For the demand creation, Sujana works at household and community level through individual counseling and community mobilization, and for creating the smooth supply of the supply chain, such as availability of nutrition logistics in the service delivery point, that the beneficiaries, program participants can receive the services from their doorsteps. Sujana does advocacy with the local and national government that all the nutrition logistics and staff availability are ensured. Next, please. An end-line survey has been conducted to assess the impact of first cohort, which shows that after 3 years of intervention, households' food security increased, dietary diversity of the households and women of reproductive age has significantly increased compared to baseline. Minimum acceptable food consumption by the children below 2 years has increased, and healthcare seeking behavior, particularly of pregnant and lactating women, has increased. Women decision-making powers in major household purchases has increased, and adaptation to climate resilient agricultural technology has increased. And in the slide you see some photos of women cooking in the community through what they learn from the group session from the community. Thank you. Next, please.
Thank you very much, Romana. I think of all the panelists, you were the only one who mentioned increasing the power of women in decision making. And even though this was a project on nutrition, it had a very good multi-dimensional and integrated approach. So I think the results are very well-rounded, as you have shown us. May I now ask all of the speakers from this panel to turn on their cameras and microphones for the Q&A session. I'm having a look at some of the audience's questions. There are some questions that are specific to individuals. So let me begin with a question to Dr. Vaishnava. A member of our audience said it was very interesting, your presentation, but were there any challenges in getting the uptake of dried fish powder or small fish nutrition? Vaishnava.
In the beginning, in the first week also, we got little challenge because the cooking practice. Otherwise, it is very much accepted by all children regularly in the community level, and also because due to COVID, 50% time we adopted it in Anganwadi centers, and other 50% we supplied to the mother. So in both in community and in Anganwadi center, it is very much accepted with the vegetables curry. Any curry parents will prepare just after you may put the dry fish powder and just mix, and it is a good to serve to children.
Thank you. That's very, very good to hear. I now have a particular question for Rab. Rab, I think your presentation was an excellent example of conservation, also proving very effective as a nature-based solutions, because it addressed the issue of high vulnerabilities as a result of the degradation of the environment, and then it moved on to fisheries and livelihoods. This project is excellent, but do you have a view on how this can be scaled up and how this can be bankable?
Yeah, sure. So we're already working on that through DFCD, which is the Dutch Fund for Climate Development. So it's looking at entrepreneurs, so again, especially women, but it has to be at a scalable level. So we're looking for entrepreneurs and champions within the not only the Delta, but the province of Sindh and Rajasthan to come up with bankable ideas. And we have actually a platform which allows them to have 3 steps. One is to kind of scope it, and then there's a feasibility, then there's a full financing mechanism. So we're taking all these examples that we've learned over the last 20 years now, and trying to link them up with entrepreneurs and kind of small businesses and startups who have the capability and the vision to scale it up. So very much part of the strategy, our strategy for the Delta is 50 years. It's not at 10 years or 5 years. It goes up to, I think, 2055. We're a third there, and I think we're very much on track. But scaling up is calculated in at the very beginning, so we don't end up with a situation where we're paused and there's no funding to support community activities. Thank you.
Thanks, Rab. While I have you on the microphone, there's another question that came in also for you. Can you comment on the impact of the floods in Pakistan in terms of its impacts on communities?
No, I can't. It's absolutely devastating. It started in June with the rains in the delta, and then it hit in the mountains in July. You cannot explain the devastation and the loss. We're still it's still going on. So I think the lessons learned is that we should learn from the lessons. We had a flood in 2010. Another nation, we didn't do anything, or we didn't do much. And again, we're in 2022 with the same situation, but much worse. They're going to get worse. It's time for not only for Pakistan to wake up, but for the world to wake up and realize that these are going to be increasing events, and the price tag, estimated price tag on this flood is $50 billion. Now, we can't every 3 or 4 years spend $50 billion to rehabilitate. Essentially, we could have actually, using MBS solutions, we could have reduced that impact a lot. So it is. Thank you for your concern and everyone's good thoughts, but this is a big wake-up call, not only for Pakistan, but for the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Rab. Very powerfully said, if I may say so myself. Me being a resident of the Philippines, another country that's very vulnerable. I have a question for all of our panelists. You're all very familiar with designing projects or a collection of projects that make up a program. And quite often when we present this to donors, we're often asked to talk about the financial as well as the non-financial benefits. Would you have examples of different types of benefits from the projects that you shared with us today? And maybe I'll start with Romana.
Thank you, Lan. This is a very important question. Though you said financial and non-financial benefit, but I would say what we see or what we call non-financial that turns to financial benefits, such as awareness raising. It helps to increase food security and nutrition at household level, but it gives you a financial return. When we talk about women's mobility, women's empowerment, women's decision-making power, that maybe we cannot count the financial benefit of those empowerment or and so on, but it in returns it gives a lot of benefit to the family, to the mental health, to their economic growth, and especially since we work with the food systems approach, so it gives a lot of benefit to the children, to the community, and to the nation, I will say. So some of the things that we measure frequently, which we call in a quantitative manner, which we call maybe we can count it directly to the financial, like for example production, agriculture production, aquaculture production, and so on, and income and sale. But all the development works, I would say, it boosts up the community, it increases their confidence, it increases their capacity to cope with even different situations like disasters, floods, or any other natural disasters, and so on. So yeah, this is what I would say, Len.
Thank you, Romana. And when you talk about women's mobility and empowerment, that's something that's very hard to measure, and certainly it goes beyond the financial. But let me ask Vaishnava or Rab, any quick responses to this?
Yeah, actually, the state like Odisha, here with the support of Worldfish and government of Odisha, we are working more than 7 lakhs women self-help group. Those are involved with the aquaculture activities in Odisha. They have a GP tank. There is any policy level change, long-term lease. So women in aquaculture is a very good things in Odisha now. So when we're talking about scale-up program of the small fish-based nutrition in Odisha, we have a good understanding with the government of Odisha that through the women support in the marine, because there is a huge 480 kilometers of coastal marine areas there. So thousands of vulnerable women are involved with the production of dry fish from hundreds of years, but they are not producing the dry fish hygienically. So we are here to support of Mission Shakti and Government of Odisha to empower the women here to produce hygienically dry fish production through solar dryer. So that in one side the livelihood and women empowerment will be ensured. In the other side, nourishment of the children will be held through the government support like ICDS, and next you may think about the schools. So in one side, vulnerable women, maybe knowingly or unknowingly, they are working on the food and nutrition security. It's a good thing, and also their livelihood. In the opposite side also, they are supporting the nourishment of our children. It's a good that you have a lot of opportunity to empower the women for their livelihood and work for food and nutrition security in state and in also in.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vaishnava. Rab, any insights from you?
Yeah, I just one thing I think which I'll repeat what Romana said, one word and add one is confidence and hope. I think we work with communities which are living on marginalized communities, both socially and economically. And I think what we've seen is that it's not just finances, it's giving them hope and it's giving them confidence. And we've seen so many times where communities have gone beyond the projects. And they've eventually stood on their feet, and that's where really we feel satisfied that the day we actually have to close the project that's not needed is the day we've succeeded. So I think hope and confidence, those two things which we really see important as a non-financial asset to doing this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rab, Vaishnava, and Romana. I'm really energized just by listening to you, and in particular to that last round of questions and answers. Due to our time constraints, we will close this panel at this point. And I'd like to thank all of you again on behalf of the audience, the ADB, for an excellent presentation and for such an interesting discussion. I hope to meet you all one day in person.
Thank you.
Thank you for now. So we started today with a short video from Pakistan on the many benefits from mangrove restoration. And as a way of closing this first part of our agenda, I'd like again to invite you to watch a second, this time focused successful initiatives involving women-led fish farming from Odisha, India, that has led to resilient and promising livelihoods. Let's roll the video, please.
গবেষণা বলছে প্রাকৃতিক মাছের উৎপাদন বাড়ানো গেলে এ সকল অপুষ্টিজনিত সমস্যা থেকে উত্তরণ সম্ভব। মানুষের প্রয়োজনীয় পুষ্টির চাহিদা নিশ্চিতকরণে এদেশের মাছ চাষ ব্যবস্থা পুষ্টি সংবেদনশীল হওয়া খুবই জরুরি। গ্রামাঞ্চলে আধুনিক মাছ চাষের ক্ষেত্রে দেশীয় ছোট মাছকে খুব বেশি গুরুত্ব দেওয়া হয় না। কিন্তু এই দেশীয় ছোট মাছই হতে পারে অনুপুষ্টির মূল উৎস।
In Bangladesh, Worldfish and Partners have introduced nutrition-sensitive homestead pond polyculture. In this approach, large carp species and small indigenous fish species are grown together in the pond. This production system means that we can increase both the quantity as well as the nutritional quality of the fish production from the ponds. One of the vegetables that we have focused on is orange sweet potato. By having this multidisciplinary approach to nutrition-sensitive food production systems and diets, we hope to improve the nutrition and health of women and children in Bangladesh.
তাপ ও শক্তিদায়ক খাদ্য, শরীর বৃদ্ধি ও ক্ষয়পূরক খাদ্য, রোগ প্রতিরোধক খাদ্য, মানবদেহের অতি জরুরি এই 3 ধরনের খাদ্যের ঘরোয়া যোগান সৃষ্টি করতে এবং একই পুকুরে বড় মাছের পাশাপাশি মলা, ঢেলা, চাপিলা, পুঁটি, দারকিনা সহ বিভিন্ন ধরনের ছোট মাছ সহ পুকুর পাড়ে সবজি ও ফলমূল চাষ করাকে পুষ্টি সংবেদনশীল মাছ চাষ বলা হয়।
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that video, which I think is from Bangladesh. But it now gives me great pleasure to introduce our second panel. We're moving on. And this second panel focuses on sharing experiences in delivering impact at scale, with a focus on aquatic food, sustainable fisheries, and mangrove-related nature-based solutions. Our panelists are Shakuntala Haraksingh-Tilsted, whom you already saw in that video. She is the global lead in nutrition and public health at WorldFish and the 2021 World Food Prize laureate. We also have Rili Johani, the executive director of the Coral Triangle Center in Bali. And finally, Dr. Saurabh Chatterjee, the nodal officer, mangrove plantation at West Bengal, India. We will hear from each of our 3 speakers, and we will have a panel discussion based on questions from the audience. As before, we will be using Pigeonhole on the same link. Please find it on your screens and use the information there to type in your questions or comments. We invite you to use your device, or at the bottom of the screen, you'll find the link. Please take a moment to check that you have found the place and input your questions. And now we'll kick off with our second panel. I'll ask Shakuntala Haraksingh-Tilsted, the global lead in nutrition and public health at WorldFish and the 2021 World Food Prize laureate. We're very honored to have you today. Shakuntala will speak to us about examples of civil society and government efforts to deliver nutrition and livelihoods benefits. These are examples from South Asia. Shakuntala, over to you.
Thank you. Greetings all from Bhubaneswar, Odisha, where I'm sitting together with Dr. Vaishnava. And thank you, Lian and WWF, for inviting me to address you once again this year. As we have heard from the several speakers before, and it was so great that I had one of my past students addressing you, Romano, there is growing evidence on the importance of aquatic foods in nourishing nations, ensuring food and nutrition security to many, especially the poor and vulnerable, providing livelihoods and income opportunities also for women and youth in aquatic food systems, and also aquatic foods for restoring degraded environments while mitigating the impacts of climate change. I am going to take this opportunity, building upon WorldFish's experience in Odisha and Assam, as shared by Dr. Vaishnava, to illustrate the experience of engaging governments, in this case, state governments and civil society organizations, to scale interventions for maximum impact. One of the key messages drawn from the 2022 State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World Report is that current government support to the food and agricultural sectors is often not aligned with the promotion of healthy diets. Government spendings on food and agriculture products vary between 12 and 20% of countries' GDP. But the scale of institutional buying can create a demand for nutritious food, including aquatic foods. Public settings such as schools, government offices, childcare facilities, hospitals, prisons, nursing homes, and all other public settings can play a key role in ensuring people, especially those who are nutritionally vulnerable, are provided with nutritious, safe, and healthy foods. However, as I said before, this is not supported by public budget, food and agricultural policies that can increase nutritious foods and transform the food systems towards healthier, more equitable and sustainable food systems, and also taking into consideration that these healthy foods must come from both land and water. In India, up to 118 million school children are enrolled in government schemes and are provided daily with a hot-cooked meal. Although the meals reduce the incidence of hunger, they do not supply enough micronutrients and other essential nutrients to nourish the children, and therefore do not provide optimal growth, development, and cognition in these children. The state government of Odisha, having realized the potential in using small fish to address this need for nourishment, engaged with WorldFish as a technical partner to implement a pilot study to understand the availability and the acceptability of including small fish in school meals, as mentioned by my colleague, Dr. Vaishnava. Drawing upon the success of this pilot, backed by evidence of other WorldFish interventions to use small fish for nutrition in Bangladesh, in Cambodia, and Myanmar, the state government has incorporated fish as a vital component in the strategy of Odisha's pathway for accelerated nutrition, a transformative approach for improving nutritional outcomes in 22 districts. This strategy prioritizes a life cycle approach to address malnutrition and anemia among adolescent girls, pregnant and lactating women, and children below the age of 6 years. In 2022, a decision was taken to scale up the use of fish beyond the 50 pilot Angawadis to all centers across the state. Scaling of nutrition-sensitive aquatic food systems is complemented by another policy decision by the state government, and that is to allocate Gram Panchayat, which are village water tanks, for pond polyculture. Women self-help groups, each group with 10 women, are enabled by the state government to stock, manage, harvest, market, and consume the various fish species from these types. This decision was taken in order to increase the availability and accessibility to fish consumption, especially for women and their young children. There has been resounding success in the use of Gram Panchai tanks for pond polyculture, as more than 6,000 tanks are already being used for this purpose, compared with the initial goal of only using 2,000 tanks. Over 6,000 women's self-help groups are engaged, and many more will be included as the program is scaled up to all 30 districts of the state. At full scale, 64,000 Gram Panchai tanks will be put to use across the state of Odisha and result in a production of over 100,000 tons of fish annually, and diverse fisheries. The pilots and scaling operations in Odisha demonstrate the power of engaging governments and civil society organizations, in this case, the women's self-help groups, to maximize the reach in delivering positive impacts with aquatic foods. The successes of these innovations have also drawn the attention of other states in India, for example, Assam and Bihar, as they adopt and adapt these approaches to address food and nutrition insecurity. These approaches greatly benefit from targeted investments and research to fully meet the global agenda of aquatic foods for nourishing all people and our planet. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Shakuntala. Very interesting to see the great success of the Grand Panchai tanks and that it has exceeded its targets, and also your emphasis on women self-help groups. And I think you are also the first to actually mention equity in all of these approaches. So thank you very much. I'll move on to our next panelists. We'll hear from Rani, the Executive Director of the Coral Triangle Center in Bali. Really will speak to us on scaling up capacity and collaboration through peer networks and share lessons learned from the women leaders for the Coral Triangle region. I think I might have lost my connection for a bit there, but really, thanks for joining. I hope people heard me when I was introducing you as the Executive Director of the Coral Triangle Center in Bali, and that you will be speaking to us on scaling up capacity and collaboration through peer learning networks. So over to you, really.
Thank you, Lan. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank WWF, Worldfish, and ADB for organizing this session. And I look forward to sharing with you our experience with scaling up capacity and collaboration via peer learning networks, and particularly focus on the role of women in coastal and marine ecosystems preservation. The Coral Triangle Center, CTC, is a non-government organization registered in Indonesia, and we focus on building long-term capacity for marine conservation in the Coral Triangle region, an epicenter for marine biodiversity, including countries like Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia, Timor-Leste, Papua New Guinea, and the Solomon Islands. And we're a strategic partner to the CTI-CFF, the Coral Triangle Initiative for Coral Reefs, Fisheries and Food Security, a multilateral initiative between the 6 countries to collaborate and preserve those coastal and marine ecosystems. And they all prioritize capacity building as a priority to achieve their goals. Next slide, please. So this is actually an example of how we recognize women in the region. We helped establish a peer learning network of women who are playing key leadership roles in sustaining the marine resources of the Coral Triangle. And we started off with a group of 15 women leaders representing the 6 countries, and now the network has more than 200 members across the region. And they are also linked to national networks of women leaders who are all demonstrating great progress in preserving coastal and marine conservation activities. And one of the great successes of this peer learning network, which is now fully adopted by the senior officials meeting, is that they also developed a gender equality social inclusion policy that has been adopted by all 6 countries. Next, please. We also organized an intergenerational training program, which was a great success in terms of combining mentor skills with leadership skills and putting together 6 teams, one of each country in the Coral Triangle, with a senior official and a mentee, a younger official. Could also be a combination of government officials and NGO representatives. And for 1 year, they conducted a conservation challenge, and they had to apply their leadership skills in achieving it. And for example, the team in Indonesia, they focused on coral mining issue in remote islands in the eastern part of Indonesia, and they managed to replace the coral building materials with other more sustainable materials, set up a campaign for the local community, and also raise more funds to support their program. So it's one of those great examples where the women leaders were actually able to help mobilize more resources and influence the whole community in using more sustainable building materials. In Timor-Leste, they also worked on collecting plastics, recycling plastics, and making more products for the tourism market. And they also replicated their model to other islands in Timor-Leste. Next, please. So in Indonesia, we also support women leaders, particularly in the blue swimming crab community. We help empower women to use seaweed to produce special projects like savory snacks, as well as supporting a community in West Papua in helping to utilize discarded fish like flying fish, bycatch, and also turn them into savory snacks. So by actually engaging women in specific fisheries activities, they could also help supplement their own income and support their families with special support. Next, please. And in Nusa Penida, a marine protected area, which is a site offshore Bali, we implement currently an Asian development project to support the local communities there. And again, one of the key activities are the women groups that we help train in making seaweed crackers. Next, please. Next slide, please. And they use the seaweed very productively to turn them into seaweed crackers, which has become a great product for the market in Bali. And we help replicate this project to scale throughout Nusa Penida. And we hope this becomes a great example for women communities who were hit hard by the pandemic as tourism came to a screeching halt in Bali. To have an alternative income in this context. Last slide, please. Just some few lessons learned. I just want to highlight that particularly the identification of women leaders, champions in the region really generated a lot of support throughout the region and increased our membership in the peer learning network, in the Women Leaders Forum. And also they were very effective in mobilizing institutional support and more financial support for their activities on the ground with the villages. So it's a great example on how through peer learning networks and very targeted leadership training, we could increase capacity and impact across the region. Thank you.
Thank you very much, really. one thing that struck me from your presentation and actually all the other presentations is, although our theme is really just focused on sustainable blue economies, food security, and livelihoods, the role of women has just permeated all of the presentations, and in this one more especially. So thank you for emphasizing women's economic empowerment, capacity, and leadership, really. I will now invite our third speaker for this panel, Dr. Saurabh Chatterjee, the District Nodal Officer at the Mangrove Plantation in West Bengal, India. Saurabh will speak to us about government and civil society collaboration to deliver Sundarban's mangrove and nature-based solution impacts. Saurabh, over to you.
Good morning, Lan. Good morning. Very good morning. Actually, thank you, WWF and the Worldfish for giving the opportunity to give my presentation here in this forum. I will directly go to my project, that is Project Mangrove Sundarban. Last 2-3 years we are dealing with the pandemic, and the project has implemented immediately after coming of the pandemic. Pandemic that is in the year 2020. Actually, I am giving the perspective of this project from a view of from the government side, and this project came into our mind after 2020, immediately after the one of the larger biggest cyclone that was Amphan. Perhaps you have heard the super cyclone Amphan that directly hit our Sundarban in the year 2020, and we have seen a sudden change. I don't know why. Later I discovered, immediately after 3 months, 4 months, the cyclones coming back in our Bay of Bengal. It's not so. When cyclones usually comes after 1 year, 2 years, but it came very early, with a very small interval. Then we started what we can do. We started our project Mangrove in Sundarban. You can see the picture. These are the sites over the Sundarban. You will be happy to know that more than 217 sites has been developed. Next slide, please. Yeah, so what is the outcome? I will just in short tell you what is the outcome. Scientifically, we have already completed more than 50 square kilometer new forest, and I will not go in the number because the number is 100 million we have covered, and I will show you the pictures. What is the present picture? Not present, just 6 months back. So, and the prime focus was also to give livelihood. Sundarban women also got benefited through that project. One side was definitely resilient Sundarban, and another story was to give steady employment also. So we, as our previous speakers and they told that we can't segregate the project and the local people and the environment there. So we tried to collaborate all of them, and the result was really it's coming amazing. Next slide, please. See, these are some pictures. I will not go into details. You just see the pictures. Next slide, please. These are some sites that I will show you. And you see, this is just the 2 years mangrove. You can see the root of mangrove that is well established, and it's just growing like anything else. And 217 sites more than. And I have, for your information, I have given the link in one of my book, and that will be very helpful. This is the first time in Sundarban we are keeping documented effort that what are the species we are planting, what are the soil condition, and what are the the tidal flow. Everything is scientifically given, and we have some CSOs also collaborated with us very well, and they provide us technical support. I will just give 2-3 examples. One of the CSOs provided us with a simple technical solution of monitoring through the local people. And and another, I mentioned that WWF has supported us with a wonderful wonderful technical support. That is, they are making the carbon sequestration, that they are measuring the carbon sequestration through geofencing. They have already done 217 plots. So everything is now virtual. We can monitor. Already, I was astonished to see that already more than 1 million metric ton carbon has been sequestered in these only sites, and these are the artificially planted mangrove sites. The result is wonderful. So next slide, please. See, these are the World Mangrove Day we have celebrated. Government officials, CEOs, everyone collaborated, and we have gone in a festive way and planted this more than 5 crore mangrove there. Next. These are the one official monitoring. Monitoring is very important, and you can see that forest official is monitoring the plantation sites. Please, next. Oh, this is the present scenario, and you'll be happy to see in the satellite map already developed by WWF that they are growing day by day. And I, being a bureaucrat, government officials, the result is wonderful. At the last of the slide, I will just give one. Please, next slide. I will just give one statement. I think that will be very important and very relevant to this forum, that government CSO collaboration in these challenges of climate changes and the subject, whatever we told. Government is like elephant. We have the power, we have the vigor, but the CSO collaboration is like the companion of an elephant, and they can guide properly. They are the eye of us, and the proof is our Sundarban Mangrove project. Thank you. I would say to play my small video, and it would be very visually connected to you for the whole program. Please.
আমাদের এখানে ঘন বাদাবন ছিল, এটা নষ্ট হয়ে যাচ্ছে, যার ফলে আমরা প্রচুর বিপদের মুখে আছি।
গাছ লাগানোর কাজটা আমরা শুধু পয়সা ইনকামের জন্য করছি না, আমাদের ছেলেমেয়েরা যাতে ভালো থাকে সেই জন্যই কাজটা করছি।
আমাদের আগে যেরকম জঙ্গল ছিল সেরকম বাদাবন যেন আমরা দেখতে পাই, এইটাই আশা করি আমরা।
Thank you. Thank you. That's a very powerful video, very impressive visuals. I see that our speakers from panel 2 have now turned on their cameras and microphones for the Q&A question. Unfortunately, we are running really short of time. So let me ask a question to all of the panelists. I mean, you've shared with us very, very impressive and high-performing projects. But of course, we don't want our projects to be just be islands in a big river, right? So are there any plans and challenges in institutionalizing the projects that you've shared? Hopefully getting support from not just the government, but also the corporates and the public, so that the benefits can be provided to the rest of vulnerable populations in your countries. Maybe I'll start with really, maybe it's not just in your countries, but in the case of really, it's South-South solidarity through the peer learning networks, right? Go ahead, really.
Thank you, Len. Great question. So I think one of the ways we try to further institutionalize it is through the GESI policy, so the Gender Equality, Social Inclusion Policy, which has been accepted by all 6 countries in the Coral Triangle, meaning there will be budget allocated, there will be monitoring, evaluation programs set up in the Coral Triangle context. But also at the national level, we try to further institutionalize it by linking this effort to ministries of women empowerment at each country, with local networks of women as well. And the leadership training module that we developed is also now further adopted in each country by other organizations who use it in their respective organizational work. So in that way, we try to sustain as much as possible our efforts in this context. Thank you.
Thank you, really. Dr. Shakuntala, your views, please.
Thank you, Lan. If I should call for one intervention that I would like to see, and this is at international level. And I've called for this before with the Asian Development Bank, with the African Development Bank, and with governments, that they should be leading, and they should be leading together. And we have enough innovations, enough solutions, and enough ideas that can be put into use through South-South collaboration and greater focused investments that can be done by state governments, by national governments, and by international organizations, and collaboration, for example, between the banks in the Caribbean, in Asia and Africa. Please let us move on that. Now traveling has started back. We can meet, we can discuss, and we can make sure that we together put all our efforts together and all our knowledge together and move forward as one for the good of all peoples and our planet. Thank you.
Thank you. Saurabh, last words from you on this question.
No, thank you. What you have told about institutionalization and making government and CSOs in collaboration. Actually, the success of our mangrove project, because of this, CSOs helped us very much, and government is supporting, and we are replicating also. So this is the model that partnership and successful implementation, replication is the ultimate goal, and the result will definitely come very positive in this way. And in a short while, we have managed to plant and get the result of more than 5 crore mangrove. That's a really magical thing that what you are mentioning. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are just about to move into the final agenda for our event today, but before that, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to all of our panelists, Shakuntala, really, Saurabh, but also to Rab, Vaishnava, and Romana in the previous panel. But also, particularly, I'd like to thank our audience for excellent questions and for participating and listening. So once again, thank you very much. And now, as we move into the final stage of the event, where we will now have an opportunity to hear reflections from the ADB and Worldfish on today's topics and the conversations that we have. It is my pleasure to invite Mio Oka, the Director of the Environment, Natural Resources, and Agriculture Division, South Asia Department, to deliver the response on behalf of the Asian Development Bank. Over to you, Mia.
Thank you. Thank you very much to all speakers for sharing your valuable experience in today's session. Many speakers use photos, even video, so I can understand clearly the on-ground situations. Thank you. I remember when I started working in South Asia region about 6 years ago. Our operation was centered around constructing irrigation infrastructures. As you've heard from Lan and others, ADB operations have been changing to make us more relevant to resolve issues that our clients are currently facing. Just a little bit about ADB. ADB Strategy 2030 gave greater and renewed emphasis on rural development and climate change. In 2020, ADB also announced our targets to raise climate finance ambition to 100 billion between 2019 and 2030. And we just announced yesterday our food security targets of $14 billion between 2022 and 25. Due to change of this policy direction, and also due to life-threatening events such as COVID and floods, now our operations target to increase the resilience of people, particularly those vulnerable to such external shocks. Today, I learned from you the importance of building confidence among the community members, strengthening power of women within household to enhance household nutritional security, and also how to enhance small fish production and also mangrove plantation. Learning from your experience, I see the change in what we do and also what our client governments want. We now see an increase of what our client call convergence project. We no longer do a standalone irrigation scheme. For example, a pressurized irrigation scheme in India is now implemented along with horticulture development. And also we increased community-driven nature project to focus on vulnerable group in the country. For example, small-scale watershed management with fishery component in Bangladesh, also in Chittagong Hill Tract. And our agriculture commercialization project in Nepal, our agriculture commercialization project in both Nepal and Bangladesh include measures on food security and increased nutritional aspects of providing healthy and safe food. And our flood project no longer rely on concrete flood walls, but use nature-based solution, that is use of gel bags. What you presented today was inspiring. You already gave me ideas how your activities, such as Women Leaders Forum and cross-knowledge exchange among different states, and the collaboration between the government and CSOs, those can be already included part of our project. I strongly believe ADB job is to upscale or expand, or as participants today mentioned, institutionalize your experience that have been already successfully implemented on the grounds. I look forward to closely work with CSOs in our operations. And thank you very much. I will now pass back the virtual floor over to our moderator, Lam. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mio. I'm really excited to hear about the new policy, increased investments, and that there are no more standalone projects and that the emphasis is on convergence. thumbs up to the ADB on all of those. And now I'd like to invite and hear our co-organizer for this event, Essam Yassin Mohammed, the Interim Director General of WorldFish, and at the same time, the Acting Senior Director for Aquatic Food Systems at CGIAR, to deliver his response on behalf of WorldFish. Essam, over to you. You.
Okay, profuse apologies. I've just been told I was on mute. I was talking to myself. I was just congratulating Lan for the excellent moderation, and congratulating our panelists for the very insightful and exciting presentation. We heard today really exciting stuff. With that said, for me, the main highlight is it was really good to see the shift from the usual doom and gloom narrative when we talk about coastal and marine ecosystems or the ocean-based economies in general towards more solution-oriented. And today we've seen myriads of solutions that we'll touch upon them very soon. But also very encouraging to see a people-centric approach as well. As one of the early sort of, scientists or researchers who were involved in the development of the concept of the blue economy, which was seen as a one giant aquarium, but now to see the narrative shifting towards more inclusion, that people-centric approach is really encouraging, and we need to build on that momentum. We talk about sustainable economies is as much as it is for the nature, it is about people as well. And as I said again, plenty of solutions out there that deliver a triple win for people, nature, and climate. But I think there was a very important point that was made by Lan there earlier, which is, how do we make sure these solutions do not end up becoming islands of success? And therefore, my key message for today is I think there is a need to have that systemic approach, as we try to scale these solutions. And systemic approach or systems thinking requires us to identify some systemic constraints. And because of time constraints, I will tally only 4 or so. One is, despite the myriads of solutions that we hear about, there is persistent sort of lack of access to these innovations and solutions, and particularly the technological solutions for a number of favorable and unfavorable regimes that are out there. So therefore, recognizing that lack of access to these solutions by the quote-unquote poor and vulnerable communities that we talk about, I think is really key. There is a fundamental institutional bias as well, compounded with the misalignment of incentives and investments that leads to chronic lack of finance or finance gap as well, that hinders the scaling of some of these solutions to make a transformational difference in people's livelihoods. On the other aspect is dealing with market failure or market fragmentation as well. Particularly focusing on how to make sure these members of our societies have access to insurance and social protection schemes and affordable and suitable finance, etc. So in short, by addressing all these systemic constraints, we will hopefully be able to support people beyond just helping them to keep their heads above the water, no pun intended, but to make sure they are able to realize their fullest potential and to thrive and prosper through our interventions to promote a sustainable and inclusive blue economy. With that said, I'm happy to say that WorldFish is here to partner with you all to work with multilateral development banks, with other development partners and civil society groups in order to bring about that transformational change that we all wish to see. Thank you very much, and back to you, moderator.
Thank you, Essam, and thank you, Mio, for your reflections at the end of both our panels. I'd like to add some reflections myself to those that have already been said by our panelists, our colleagues, as well as Mio and Essam. I'm picking up a few keywords from what has been said today. Number one, I think no matter how we go about our projects in our specific sectors, climate change really is, or climate crisis is the existential frame by which we approach these long-standing challenges to sustainable economies, whether that's from food security, conservation, or livelihoods, or nutrition. But there are some essential elements, I think, that have been highlighted by this session today. One, the issue of equity. We have to pay attention to the fact of access and equitable distribution of resources. But equity isn't just about resources or the benefits of the economy, it's also about equity in terms of voice and influence, which is why collaboration, convergence, partnerships are all very important. And in particular, the empowerment of communities so that they can participate and lead in these processes that arrive at nature-based sustainable solutions. And we all know communities are not homogeneous. So within those communities, a special attention to women, children, and other vulnerable members of that community. And when we speak of sustainable solutions, I think what that also implies is sustainable investments, investments that do not look at only one angle of the problem, but looks at how one solution is connected with the rest. And with that, there's something else that I think before we close, I'd like to introduce. There's one more person who has been with us the whole time. Desiree, our graphic harvester, has been intently listening the whole time and has created a visual impression of the session. So excited to see what you have picked up, and over to you, Desiree.
Thank you, Lan. So here's a quick visual journey of today's session. So Rab started talking about the importance of community dialogue and how they planted 15,000 hectares of mangroves and diversifying the fisheries catch, which increased the income, and of course, the importance of partnerships. And Vaishnava talked about some of the findings, which include that awareness and monitoring were really important to this program, how it was well accepted and it was easy to store and use. And the convergence approach has really made this successful. And then Romana talked about some of the interventions, which include homestead food production, market system development, social protection schemes. And the results include increased food security, dietary diversity, and decision-making of women. And for our second panel, Shakuntala talked about the importance of tapping women's self-help groups and the tremendous scale of village water tanks and how this has contributed to the nutrition of many communities. And then really discuss the peer learning network for women, and some of the lessons include selecting key network champions, having a strong purpose and roadmap, and some of the success stories include scaling up to the national level and developing leadership and technical skills. And so Rav discussed the successful mangrove plantation and how this was a giant leap towards climate mitigation and has provided livelihood of more than 100,000 women. And this was the beautiful result of government and CSO collaboration. And finally, for Mia's response on the importance of developing the resilience of people, community-driven nature projects, more nature-based solutions, and Essam ended with the importance of having more people-centric approaches, systems thinking, and the importance of having people thrive and prosper. Thank you, everyone, for letting us draw the big picture with all of you.
You, Desiree, that is really impressive. And I hope that goes into the documentation of the event today. So as I say my thanks to Desiree, I also want to repeat my big thank you to all of our speakers and respondents for their contributions today. And a big thank you also to the technical team, whom you don't see, but they are hardworking behind the scenes, and the CSO division at ADB for organizing this program, and to all of you who attended today. We hope you have gained something useful from our discussions. Please do attend other sessions being held as part of this ADB annual meeting, including other sessions as part of the CSO program of events. A recording will be made available via the ADB website, so please do check for updates from the ADB. On behalf of WWF and Worldfish, thank you so much, and I wish you all the best. Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you, Lam.